What's going on, everybody? We are here live here on the OT show. Hey, listen, we got a good show for y'all today. Today, I am bringing on former White House staffer, law professor, and acclaimed author, Professor Sheryll Cashin is going to be joining your boy here on the show to discuss her new book, White Space, Black Hood. And we're going to discuss that book here on the show. I cannot wait. Because, this is one of the two shows that OT will be having. This will be our last show of 2021 because we are going on a little vacation because we need it. But why not end the show with one of two powerful women here today on the station? Now, I can't tell you how much is an honor and it's a pleasure to have her come on the show, Professor Sheryll Cashin, come on the show to talk to me about White Space, Black Hood. Because she's going to break down some things for us today. Because, I read some of the book, some of the sneak peeks of the book. I read some of it. So we're going to discuss some of the book, especially some of the things that I have. And I cannot tell you how ecstatic I am to have this icon. And when I mention icon, I mean icon, y'all, because she is definitely an icon here on the station with your boy OT, celebrating one of his two last shows here for 2021. And right now, our producers have said that she's in the building. So we're going to go ahead and bring her in the building right now. And much love. We love her. We love her. We love her. So if we bring her in the building, and she's in right now, y'all. Yes, she is in the building. Good afternoon. How are you today?
How are you? It's so good to be with you. Should I call you OT? What should I call you?
Yes, you can call me OT. You can definitely call me OT. Can I call you Professor? Because you are a professor.
Well, you're so kind. If that's what you want to call me, that or Sheryll, but whatever you like.
Just because
I call you Mr.
because
OT.
we have to. Okay. Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for joining me here on the show. Congratulations on your fifth book, White Space, Black Hood. Congratulations on that. And not every day I have a woman of your stature on the station right here. And when I say that, you're a White House staffer, you're an author, and you are a law professor. And to have you all wrapped up in one, OT is happy right now. I am happy, and I am going out with 2021 with a bang. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
My pleasure.
So let's.
I'm delighted.
Well, let's just go ahead and dive into it. Can you tell our family, because we call our subscribers and listeners and fans, family, about yourself?
Well, I was born and raised in Huntsville, Alabama, the child of civil rights activists. And, my dad and mom put everything on the line for enabling Black people in the state of Alabama to have a vote and to vote for themselves. Daddy's founded an independent Democratic Party at a time when the regular party was dominated by George Wallace and allowed Black people in the Black Belt of Alabama to run for and get elected as county sheriff, school board superintendent, probate judge, right? That's what I was born into. I grew up licking NDPA stamps and traveling all over the state. Felt like I went to every Black church in the Black Belt of Alabama, right? And so in my family's values, the only way to live was to spend your waking hours advocating for Black Americans who had less than you did, right? That is what I got inculcated in me. And, I got a great education. Like you said, worked in the Clinton administration, went to fancy schools. But that never left me. And I've spent 2 decades since I left the Clinton White House. I worked on urban and economic development particularly for poor communities. And then I have the privilege of being a law professor at Georgetown, and almost all of my writing has been about some aspect of racial oppression. And this book, White Space, Black Hood, there's a 2-decade culmination. So I finally figured it out, that place where you live is the mechanism for racial inequality in this country, you know, and so, and what it's an intentional structural institution for keeping Black people down, as intentional as slavery, as intentional as Jim Crow, right? Anybody who gets on drives knows, you know, why are the neighborhoods so different? You know, why do we have a Buckhead, you know, that wants to secede from Atlanta, that has the best of everything, and then we have these pockets of concentrated poverty, often Black poverty. That didn't happen by accident, you know. And I show this history, the past and present, of intentionally constructing affluent white space and high poverty Black hoods. So that's a quick introduction.
I like that. I like that. I like that. So, how would you categorize your book, White Space, Black Hood, as is it a non-fictional, or is it a book to self-help guide for Blacks in America?
Okay, so it's nonfiction, but absolutely. I mean, I didn't write it as a self-help guide, but I feature in every chapter Black Americans, who I call descendants, Black Americans, descendants of the enslaved. I feature somebody who's resisting oppression, you know, in the throes of it, but resisting it, you know, to show the way in which this country insidiously oppresses my people, right? But also to show that for 400 years, we have always resisted in the face of oppression. So to celebrate our resilience, despite everything that's put up against us. So you know, I tell stories. I have pictures of the people I'm talking about, and it's designed to inspire, but it's also designed to educate, so you understand the systems that you're dealing with, and understand how to lock arms with others and fight that stuff, right? You know, and so I hope that's answering your question.
Yeah. Right now, Miss Professor Miss Sheryll Cashin is joining us right here on the show. We're talking about White Space, Black Hood, her book, her 5th book. Now, I read some of the book. I like it, and I want to talk about 3 key points that you said in the book. Right, boundary maintenance, opportunity hoarding, and stereotype-driven surveillance. Can you break that down to our listeners, each one for us? So let's go with boundary maintenance. Can you explain that to us?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you, OT, for doing your homework. Professor is, you know, not everybody reads. So
No problem.
So
thank you.
Right. So first, let me say those 3 things you mentioned: boundary maintenance, opportunity hoarding, and stereotype-driven surveillance. Those are the 3 anti-Black processes that create what I call the residential caste system. So I want to understand. So you said break down boundary maintenance first, right? That was your question.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so if you, and I encourage your viewers, your listeners, wherever you are, whatever fairly big city you're near, if you Google greenlining and name the city, like greenlining Atlanta, greenlining Detroit, greenlining Baltimore, right? You'll see some story written that pulls up a map that shows where Black people were segregated from the beginning in the 1930s, right? And so the first thing to understand about boundary maintenance is intentional public policies to contain people, right? And the group that they've tried most to contain are Black Americans, particularly poor Black Americans. And, the past was, redlining those neighborhoods, using racially restrictive covenants, violence, racial zoning to put people into a Black side of town, right? I'm sure you're familiar with the Black side of town in Atlanta, below I-20.
Yeah.
It's stark, right? And then what did they do? They redlined those neighborhoods. They marked Black people. This is where you get to live, and this is only where you get to live. And then they redlined those neighborhoods, meaning they deprived those neighborhoods of all of the investment and mortgages that were rained down on majority white areas, right? So even the most successful of Black neighborhoods, sticking with Atlanta, the neighborhoods around Atlanta University, right? This is where, so vital Black neighborhoods, they mark them as hazardous, right? And so boundary maintenance today, it continues. What are some of the modern practices? Racial steering by realtors, where they'll say, we'll show you these houses over here, but, not over there.
Yes. Yes, they do that.
Absolutely. Discrimination in mortgage lending, right? Black Americans who are equally qualified to white Americans are often discriminated when they try to get a mortgage and offered subprime credit products that are, with high interest rates and terms that often are designed to create a foreclosure, right? The biggest form of boundary maintenance we have today is what's called exclusionary zoning, where in something like in most of the majority large cities in this country, it is illegal to build anything other than a single family detached home on 75% of the land, right? So, the reason Buckhead has mega mansions and no apartments, certainly no affordable apartments, is that, there's a zoning code there that says you could only build this kind of house there, right? So these are forms, of boundary maintenance. Also, the way school boundaries are drawn. Often school boundaries are drawn to encourage segregation, right? And what we have for Black children in this country, a lot of Black children are trapped in what academics call apartheid schools, where almost everybody in the school is Black and a lot of the kids are poor. Well, what happens when you intentionally construct schools like that? Other people with choices avoid them, and the state devalues those kids and gives them less, right? So, and then you also, another form of boundary maintenance is just resistance and avoidance to living with large numbers of Black people, and the white Americans are the worst in that, so that's, avoiding neighborhoods where more than a certain percentage of the people are Black. So we have this past, and then we have a present. All of this contributes to boundaries and borders, and anybody who gets in the car and drives in this country is familiar with these boundaries.
Yeah, because in the big cities like Philadelphia, because that's where I'm from, you can see it now, right? Where now they are moving the Black Americans out, and the whites are coming in. And I always say this: when you can see things that's happening when you start seeing the blue bikes. I always say, you see a blue bike in the hood, always remember that blue bike is going to come. Some people is coming. The people is coming with the blue bike, because the blue bike is a staple. As you can rent the bike, ride it around the whole neighborhood. That means the neighborhood's about to get very good. is about to go up. Stocks
You
about to
know,
go up in that
in,
neighborhood.
in my city, the bikes are red, this sort of bright red, right? We have a
Yeah,
whole
yes.
right, and it's Philly is in the book. I've got maps from Philly. I write a lot about Philly. Philly's becoming like Paris, where the
Mhm.
central city has become white space, white and
Mhm.
Asian heavily, where they scrubbed it, right? Um, and all of that's intentional. All of that is intentional. So yes, boundary
So talk
maintenance.
Yep, that's boundary maintenance, y'all. Right now, we are talking with Professor Miss Sheryll Cashin here, talking about her book, White Space, Black Hood. And now we're going to get on the second one, opportunity hoarding. Can you describe that to our listeners?
Right. So opportunity hoarding is the state and private investors intentionally overinvesting in affluent white space and
Hmm.
disinvesting elsewhere, particularly in Black neighborhoods. Okay. And
Hmm.
when I talked about the redlining of Black neighborhoods beginning in the 1930s, that's a classic example. Like, oh, we're going to give these affordable mortgages that enable people to buy a home only to majority white areas. That's a form of investment. And we're going to subsidize them and insure them too. We're going to bring home ownership to
Hmm.
the mass. But if you're Black or you're they named Black neighborhoods as hazardous, you're not worthy of that investment. In fact, that's what they called it, hazardous, right? Even
Hmm.
in middle and upper income Black neighborhoods, right? To this
Hmm.
day, in a lot of cities, and I cite this in Baltimore, to their own horror, despite being a Black-led city, 7 of the last
Hmm.
8 mayors Black, majority of the people on the
Hmm.
city council Black, right? They
Right.
discovered to their own horror when they analyzed it that they were spending 3 to 4 times more in white neighborhoods than Black neighborhoods with their capital investments, community investments.
Really?
Right.
Hmm.
This is Black leadership, right? And and in Chicago, same thing. In Chicago, white neighborhoods have been shown to get 3 times more than Black neighborhoods in public and private investment. And how
Hmm.
does this happen? That's opportunity
Yeah.
hoarding, right? Another
Yeah.
classic example of opportunity hoarding is to say through the zoning code, you can only
Hmm.
live here if you can afford to buy a certain kind of house, right? And they don't
Mm.
have to put a price on it, right? Black people tend to have less money than other people. And then you can't attend any school in our area, in our jurisdiction, unless you can buy a house here, right? So
Hmm.
um, our high performing, richly resourced schools that have the best of everything, you can't have it. You can't touch it, right? That's opportunity hoarding, right? So,
Hmm.
uh, and it's just really stark. What is this country do? We have separate and unequal public schools in this country,
Yes, we do.
right?
Yes, we do.
It's
Hmm.
everybody who has a child knows about this, right?
Yes.
And parents, I'm a parent, struggle to decide, well, what do I do? Do I kill myself to get into this expensive area? Do I use all my after tax dollars to go to private school? What do I do in this situation? But in the US, we spend $23 billion a year more in majority white school districts than in majority minority school districts, right?
Hold up. Wait a
23.
minute. Say
I
that one
cite
more
this in the
time for
book.
our
I'm gonna say it
listeners
one
can
more time. I'm
listen
gonna say it
to
one
it.
more time. It's in the first paragraph of my chapter on schools, which I think is chapters 6 or
6.
7. Anyway, whatever. Every
Mhm.
year
Chapter
in this
6.
country, the government spends $23 billion more in majority white school districts than in majority minority school districts that educate the same number of children. Okay.
Mm.
How does that happen? right? In our competitors in Europe, they actually put extra and more, they put more resources into their disadvantaged areas. They put their most qualified teachers into their disadvantaged areas. We do the opposite. We put the least qualified teachers in disadvantaged areas, and we put less money in disadvantaged areas. That's a caste system. That's opportunity hoarding. And how it happens, whether it's investing in schools or investing in neighborhoods, once you set up stark segregation, which we've had, now for more than half a century, right? And you create communities of abundance competing directly for limited resources with communities of concentrated need, affluent neighborhoods win over and over. They're the influential people, right? And society tends to overvalue whiteness and white neighborhoods. And yet the people excluded from these high opportunity places, Black 1%ers are getting in there now, right? But the majority of people who are excluded from high opportunity places are they're taxpayers, and they're actually subsidizing the high opportunity places. High opportunity places get more than their fair share of all the infrastructure. They have beautiful infrastructure, roads, bridges, everything. They have beautiful everything, right? But everybody else who doesn't get to live there is paying for that with their gas taxes, so that's opportunity hoarding. And like, if you look at what gets built, I keep sticking with Atlanta because I know you're in Lovejoy. Is that where you are?
No. I'm actually in Philly.
Oh, you've moved back to Philly? Okay.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, okay. Well, I could have been using stats in Philly. Same thing.
Oh,
Same thing, right? But if you look at the development that's going on in Philly, right, and you Center City, all this like high-end luxury development, right? Elites have a way of bending city governments and to their will, so that the kinds of things that elites want. They want their stadiums, their baseball stadiums. They want their trophy kind of things. It's typically downtown. You see this in Chicago. Beautiful, gorgeous parks and Miracle Mile, all that, right? A lot of this development, particularly sports stadiums with their luxury boxes, is subsidized by the city government, right? And there's an opportunity cost there, right? This is what I mean, opportunity hoarding, right? You give the example of Baltimore. In Baltimore, the billionaire founder of Under Armour, Under Armour, apparel. Everybody wears Under Armour now, right? He bought up this land on this peninsula that's down on the water, right? It's almost like a little island, but it's a peninsula, right? And he had this vision of developing it, with bringing more tech to the city and more luxury housing and all this. And what does he do? He goes to the city, a relatively poor city government, says, we could use $600 million in what they call tax increment financing to get this project started. And he convinced them to do it, right? He's a billionaire, but he's going to the public trough to get, but there's an opportunity cost there, right? They could have used, they're basically foregoing $600 million in revenue. Well, they could have used some of that revenue to invest in East and West Baltimore. They call it the black butterfly, the wings of Black people are in East West Baltimore. On the map, it looks like a butterfly, right?
Butterfly, yeah. It does.
Right. They have endured the neighborhoods in the East and West Baltimore, which were redlined in the 30s, have endured 8 decades of disinvestment. They're not getting first in line for these kinds of priority things, and even when you have programs like Donald Trump's opportunity zones, I don't know if you heard about that, but they came up with this idea of, okay, we're going to stimulate investment in distressed areas, and they call them opportunity zones. right? But they have loopholes in there such that a non-poor place that's adjacent to a poor place can qualify as an opportunity zone. So it's basically become a bonanza.
Wow.
Financing more luxury development, right? I shine the light on all of this. It's just very, very insidious, right? We just historically undervalue Black neighborhoods, and yet we tell tales about the people who live, particularly in the hood. And what people will often associate the physical conditions of a neighborhood with Black people who live there. What they don't see is 8 decades of systemic disinvestment, trash collection, sewers.
Yeah.
We have all these, and I'll shut up so we can go to the third one, but we have all these examples of these water crises, like Flint, Michigan. Newark has had a problem with water. Black children drinking lead in their water. Part of it is that people devalue Black citizens, and it's like they're not worthy enough for us to spend money to make sure their pipes and infrastructure are free of lead. It's just that basic, right? Devaluing Blackness instead of valuing us and our genius and seeing us as three-dimensional citizens worthy of investment and capable of doing great things if given a chance. That's opportunity hoarding.
Listen, you didn't hit on so many key points that if no one is not listening, and I hope that they are, and I hope that they go back to the replay and listen to this. I mean, you broke down boundary maintenance, you broke down opportunity hoarding, and it's really going on right now as we speak. Like opportunity, like now, yeah, like now everybody is going to, everything is now waterfronts, right? So if you look at every big city that has a waterfront, you can see they building it up. One of them is Alabama, out there in Birmingham. Their waterfront, they have built their waterfront up to the point of you sitting back like, wait a minute, this look luxury out there in Birmingham.
It's like, and I hadn't been to Birmingham in a while. I'm from Huntsville, right? But next time I go, I'm gonna look at it. But it's the same. It's almost like it's the same developers, but it has this real posh feeling, It's like a playground for the rich, right?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I have 3 degrees, and when I first visited our wharf in DC, which is a redevelopment along the Potomac, I was like, I got 3 degrees and I don't quite feel comfortable or welcome in this environment. I was like, imagine how someone else just, would feel like, I don't feel like comfortable walking in and having somebody look at me and say, can you afford to come in here? It's like,
right.
Like.
All right, so let's get on the third point. Stereotype-driven surveillance. Can you write that down for our family listeners?
Oh, Lord. This one, I think your family, and I hope your family becomes my family. I'm claiming y'all.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Right. Is most familiar with because of these awful videos, So there's 2 types of surveillance. So there's the police surveillance, right? When you have stark segregation, it facilitates a different type of policing in Black neighborhoods that would not be tolerated in white spaces, right? Where the police are an occupying force, where they apply a lens to people, particularly young Black males. Everybody's presumed to be a thug or a potential criminal and treated as such, rather than how you doing, young man. They're not officer friendly,
Nope.
Right. It's a completely different relationship than the relationship the police have with majority white areas, where they're there to protect and serve and maybe direct traffic, but definitely not to harass you, right? I don't have to school your audience on that. They're familiar with that, right? And and so we've had since the 60s, and I'm sorry to say, Lyndon B. Johnson was part of this, right? You have the riots of the 60s, they had a war on poverty, but they also started to have like a war on crime. And it's starting with the Johnson administration forward. So many federal administrations encouraged the, sending basically defense style weapons, to police departments, right? Sometimes we've even had tanks rolling through, right? But so there's that, right? Stop and frisk, right? Stopping everybody for nonviolent, trivial things, right? Well, if you get stopped enough, right, you're going to have higher arrest rates, right? Particularly for marijuana. Now we're coming around where people are saying, okay, let's legalize marijuana, but Black people have borne the brunt of that. And then there's a lot of stopping just for raising revenue, right? That's what the Ferguson story was about. That a lot of towns police Black bodies, even outside the hood, right? So that's the police state. But then there's the Karens, right? There's the surveillance of Black bodies by non-Black people wherever they are, right? And a lot of it is for utterly ordinary behavior, and we see the videos like Black people barbecuing in a park in Oakland, right? Woman calls police on them, right? I mean, all manner of silly stuff, right? And I mean, but silly, but deadly, right? Trayvon Martin, Aubrey, how am I forgetting? I'm forgetting the young man's, the young man who went jogging in Georgia.
Right.
He ended getting, I'm forgetting his name.
Aubrey.
But the point is,
Aubrey.
people, self-appointed vigilantes, calling the police or chasing down people when they see Black people particularly in white spaces. And there's been studies that showed that in neighborhoods that are gentrifying, a lot of Black neighborhoods have had this gentrification pressure. That the number of calls to the police, 911 calls and 311 calls, spike because new people moving in were uncomfortable. I tell the story of a man from the Dominican Republic who had played dominoes on his sidewalk in a neighborhood in Harlem for 40 years. He was 105 years old, and somebody moved into the neighborhood and wanted him and his friends to stop playing dominoes on the sidewalk. Called the police thousands of times, right? That's stereotype-driven. Like, either the person was threatened by men of color being on the sidewalk and they would have to encounter them daily and were uncomfortable, or just didn't want it there, right? That is stereotype-driven surveillance. And the demarcating of lines and space tends to encourage it. Most white people in this country live in a majority white neighborhood, right? So they don't get a lot of practice in just having to live among and get an intimate understanding of what non-white people in the rainbow are like, Right. And so this absence of comfort leads to these kinds of tensions, So those are the three practices of residential caste. But I'll say the beauty of once you understand these practices, it becomes clear what the way forward is. We just have to do the opposite of it, right? So, and my last chapter is called Abolition and Repair. And I say, we just have to abolish these practices. So inclusionary zoning rather than exclusionary zoning. Include, every neighborhood should have its fair share of affordable housing. And, we have to stop these, frankly, anti-Black discriminatory practices, particularly in financing, right? Opportunity hoarding, right? What's the opposite of opportunity hoarding? 2 words: racial equity. right?
Mm-hmm.
And I give
Mm-hmm.
examples. Baltimore is disrupting this. Baltimore, Seattle, Minneapolis. These are 3 cities I mentioned that changed the laws to require a racial equity analysis. So they look at the money they're spending and make sure
Mm-hmm.
that all neighborhoods, particularly historically defunded Black neighborhoods, are getting their share of investment. Government spends a lot of money every year for development, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I argue that the neighborhoods that were redlined, the majority of neighborhoods that were redlined in the 30s, 8 decades on, are they're more segregated and they're more distressed than other
Mm-hmm.
neighborhoods, right? And we know where they are. There's a
But
website that has it. So I argue that part of abolition repair, all those neighborhoods, majority Black neighborhoods, majority brown neighborhoods that were disinvested, should be first in line. There's
yeah,
this
for the
big
funding.
infrastructure. They should be first in line for community development dollars, for community investment, for because they've been historically defunded. And I
Mm-hmm.
give examples of some cities that actually did succeed in reallocating some funds from the policing budget to the racial equity investing in budget, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So there you have it, right?
I
You've heard the.
am,
Mhm.
yes. I I gotta ask this question because
Okay.
the city of Philadelphia shut down a whole lot of schools. It's been going on for the past, I want to say, over 7 years. A
Mhm.
lot of high schools was closed because the city that they did not. However, charter schools started popping up
Mhm.
everywhere.
Mhm.
And when you say that United States, the government over $23 billion.
Billion overinvests. Majority white school
Mm, mm,
districts
mm, mm.
receive $23 billion more than majority minority districts, right?
And mm, mm, mm. And that's the reason why they was closing up all these schools because they said they didn't have no money. That's what they said. They said they didn't have no money, so we got to shut down a whole lot of high schools, middle schools, and then all of a sudden these charter schools started popping up. Like I said, and I was like, hold up, wait a minute. How charter schools is popping up, but shutting down the regular public schools?
Yeah, you hit upon something really critical, OT, and I talk about this in the book too, right? So, uh, Black neighborhoods haven't received their fair share of investments to make communities nice, but they've
Hmm.
received much more than their fair share of school closures, right? This happened in,
Hmm.
in Chicago, happened in Baltimore, right? And I found a study in I'm not familiar with school closure in Philly, but I'm telling you, this has been happening in almost every city that has a large numbers of Black people, right? With
Hmm.
school closures in Chicago, I mean, in one year they closed like 50 schools in just one year. And you imagine the the shock to the neighborhood when that happens,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Typically, particularly elementary schools, they're not just schools, they're community institutions, right? It's a place
Hmm.
where people go to gather. Often these schools have things for the parents. The best of them
Hmm.
had social service delivery, but it's a point of contact with the community and a source of community pride. They, you
Hmm.
know, they closed something unbelievably large number all at once, right? And the
Yes.
study found that what did they do? They opened some new schools, and all of the new
Hmm.
schools that they opened were in majority white areas, right?
Yeah.
So this idea that, oh, we don't have enough money, and let me make this clear, right? Part of the reason cities may feel like they don't have enough money It's because they're spending way, way, way too much on policing, right? In Chicago, they're closing these schools, but the state is spending $1 million a year per inner city block to incarcerate people, right? $1 million a year per inner city block to incarcerate people. And something like, $851 million. Now, I'm not every 4 years, I should say. So the state is spending almost $1 trillion every 4 years to incarcerate people on high poverty blocks, right? And this is what you get when you basically have a relationship with Black people in poor areas of like, okay, we don't know what to do with you all, so we're just going to surveil you and incarcerate you as much as possible, right? They have money, they're just putting it into the wrong things and into policies that make things worse,
Right.
So it's not in the charter school movement. And I should say, to be honest, I had my kids in charter schools, 1st through 7th grade, right? I'm being honest. So I'm, but this is what tends to happen. The charter schools, at least in the district, they tend to be more diverse than the regular public schools, right? So I was able, I couldn't go to my neighborhoods. I chose to live in a Black neighborhood. I wanted to raise my family in a Black neighborhood, but I actually it was an integrated neighborhood, but I achieved a well-resourced, racially integrated school in which Black kids were the largest group by going the charter route. Had I gone the neighborhood route, they would have been in an overwhelmingly Black school with and I want them to learn to deal with the world, right?
Right.
But I'll say, yes, the charter school movement is complicated, and unfortunately, in a lot of situations, it's made segregation worse. And so people who are, have more energy and time to negotiate that system and figure out the lottery and figure out how do I get into this better charter school, that it tends to cause separation like that, right? So and when you contrast that to just shutting schools down, right? But again, it underscores this larger theme that we've been talking about, and it's heartbreaking. But as the public school population has become Blacker and browner, particularly in cities. Unfortunately, I think that there's less value placed on public schools. Right. And they'll create little charters as a way to try to entice white parents to stay in the system, But so what do you get? You get, a devaluing of majority Black schools and shutting them down, and then creating this other thing that's less accessible to working class and poor Black people. And this is, so this is an example of what I'm talking about, opportunity hoarding.
Well, you know what? I don't want to give everybody the whole book, because we broke down some of the 3 things in the book that I love. And I got to thank you again. Right now, we talking to Professor, and so let's talk to our kids right now, because you in, government, and you being a lawyer, because you're a professor, and what would you to any young Black woman or man who is seeking like a career in government, or seeking a career in being an author or a law professor?
Well, get wherever you are. First of all, recognize your own genius and talent.
Mm-hmm.
There's genius in you. There's talent in you. God doesn't make junk, right? You are
Yep.
excellent. You are capable of excellence, and you demand excellence from yourself, whatever your condition is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get the best education you can, um, and if you're in a place that isn't putting exciting books about you and your people in front of you, you'll find them. They're in the library.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they
Um,
are.
but so you love yourself and you value yourself, and follow wherever your passions are. It might be law, it might be music, it might be art, it might be science, it might be IT, but
Mm-hmm.
you follow what excites you, and talk to people or seek people out who are doing the things that excite you and learn from them, you know. Uh,
I like that.
and you'll get there. You believe in
I
yourself
like it.
and you will get there.
I like that. Now you talk about art. Now you didn't. You're a little artist over there too. Now
Yeah,
you
you've
know.
been looking at me a lot.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You know, you had joined your first art on your pad. How did you feel?
Oh, it's wonderful. Now I've been writing and painting since I was a child, and here I am. I'm not gonna say my age, but
Right.
and I'm still writing and painting. And God has been good, right? The
Yes.
writing and the teaching is what pays the bills. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I took art classes for years, at the art
Mm-hmm.
school here, like on
Mm-hmm.
Saturdays, and I have a little art. I was trying to decide when I talked to you today, should I be up here in my library with my books or should I be down in the art studio? I decided, since we're talking about
Uh-huh.
books, I'm in there. But I have an art studio
Right.
down in the basement and I paint,
Mm-hmm.
um, as much as I can. It's healing for me. And we'll see what
Yeah.
what God allows me to do with that in the coming years.
Yes, indeed. So now, what can we expect from you for 2022? Because it's right around the corner. What is going to
Oh,
be on your agenda?
so I'm gonna this book just came out in September, so I have
Yep.
reams of speaking engagements coming up, and I'm particularly excited. They're a group of Black ministers that really like the message of this book. A lot of big
Mm-hmm.
churches are involved in housing and are anchors of community development. So what I'm really excited about is the potential for getting in front of Black church audiences, um,
Okay.
in the coming year, right? But basically, for the next 6 months after the holidays, I've got lots of lecturing and speaking and interviews lined
Mm-hmm.
up, and then maybe in the summer. I also am a contributing editor to Politico magazine, so I'm gonna be trying to
Okay.
write a series of pieces, in Politico this year that holds up positive examples of people in cities actually trying to disrupt these practices we've talked about. Right? There's some
Uh-huh.
progressive cities that are trying to do some radical things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and I want to
Yep.
show that it's possible to for Black people and their allies. We got allies now,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to
Yeah.
get
Yes. Yes,
together
we
and
do.
start to get some progressive policies in place that are something different than what we've described. I'm gonna try to hold that up. That's enough
Okay.
for the first 6 months.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, listen, I gotta get you back on for 2022. Um, I would love for you to come to Philadelphia, to talk about it.
Well, let's see what happens with the Omicron. It's it's a lot safer to do. It's a lot safer to do virtual, isn't it? But I would be
Yes, it
delighted.
is. Yes, it is. Yes,
Yeah.
it is. And I have to get a signed copy book. So I will be ordering another book, and I would like for you to sign my book
I'd be
for me.
happy to sign it, or I can sign a book plate, which is a fancy sticker that you can put
Okay.
adhere to it. So you know how to reach me. You just tell me which way you want to do that. I appreciate,
Okay.
really do.
Listen, I
I'm glad
appreciate
to know
you.
you're
Yes, I appreciate you so much for joining me here on the show. Because this is our last show for 2021 until January, and you have put the staple on the end game. I call it the end game of 2021. You have came along and you put the staple on everything that we've been talking about through this whole year. And I like to thank you for joining me here. And I like to thank you for actually just coming on and talking about it, because we try to inform our people in our community about certain things that is going on. And I love to do. And you hit the end game on me right now. 2021, I end 2021 with a bang with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
So
much.
can you give yes. So before you leave, give everybody your IGs and where they can find you at, where they can book up and stuff at.
So I'm on Twitter at Sheryll Cashin. I'm on Instagram, Sheryll Cashin. I'm on Facebook. I have an author page, Sheryll Cashin. You can actually also just go to my website, SherylCashin.com, and you'll see all of this, ways to follow me, places to go to buy the book. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure and it's been an honor to have you on. And I will be in touch. Believe me, I
Okay.
will be in touch. So look out for a message from me in about another hour because I'm going to keep in
Okay.
touch with you. Because all right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Keep being blessed. Keep being
Thank
blessed.
you. You too. Happy holidays.
All the time. Happy holidays to you. Oh,
Okay.
good show, y'all. Wow. I am so happy right now. I had Professor Miss Sheryll Cashin here on the show talking to us. The end game. I call it the end game of 2021. I am going out with a bang. With a bang, y'all. Because we're not done yet. At 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock. I got another one for y'all. I got Miss Melissa Moorhead is going to be joining your boy here on the show at 4 o'clock. So y'all make sure y'all tune in. And we got a lot of things to talk about for 2021 after that interview. And I gotta say, the book, White Space, Black Hood, y'all make sure y'all pick it up. Make sure you pick it up on Amazon. Make sure you follow her on IGs. Y'all already heard her, Miss Sheryll Cashin. And make sure y'all check me out, otradioshow.com, where you can find everything, interviews, what we talking about, chat with me, hit me up on the page. Y'all can do anything y'all want to do. Check me out, otradioshow.com. We are up. Our website is up and live. So now y'all see it right there, OT Radio Show. Appreciate y'all. Follow me on the IGs. Click it. We here. And we'll be back here at 4 o'clock with Miss Melissa Moorhead going to be joining your boy here on the show. I love y'all. Y'all be good. And we will see you back at 4 o'clock. Peace, y'all.